The following is a special message by AMVOTE PAC.
Our government affects every aspect of our lives.
This is why we must take power into our own hands and vote.
We must let candidates seeking office know that we are here and that our voice counts.
We will hold our elected officials 100% accountable.
And we will not be taken advantage of anymore.
If you don't vote for your own interest, who will?
Get out and vote.
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 No vote, no opinion.
Your vote is your voice.
Visit our website, www.amvote.org.
I want to thank you all for gathering this evening, and thank you to AMVOTE for organizing a personal meet and greet with Illinois Democratic candidate for governor, J.B. Pritzker. It should come as no surprise when I say that tonight is a critical night for our community, a community comprised of judges, lawyers, doctors, engineers, businessmen, and educators. Our presence tonight reinforces AMVOTE's mission and sends a message to those running for office that our voice matters. Because of this personal meet and greet, only a few local elected officials were invited to attend. I would now like to introduce those officials and ask that they stand and wave. Our candidate for Cook County Commissioner, District 17, Abdel Nasser Rashid. Robert Maloney, Assessor and Democratic Committeeman of Palos Township. Donna Miller, Cook County Commissioner. Jane Nolan, Clerk of Palos Township. Ken Nolan, Treasurer for City of Palos Hills. Our very own Judge Sam Bitar, Judge Circuit Court of the 13th Sub-Circuit. And Nafis Rahman, running for Mayor of Schaumburg. A little bit about AMVOTE. AMVOTE, the American Middle East Voters Alliance, has been beyond instrumental in making sure our community is recognized, respected, and heard by our local government. The mission of AMVOTE is to use political power to achieve equal rights and equal opportunities for Arab and Muslim Americans. I want to just, because of AMVOTE's mission and because of your active participation, I want to share a brief video that we put together for you.
American Muslims and Arab Americans under constant scrutiny.
It's sad that this is our society. You know, we look at the negative and we judge people and we misperceive them.
What makes it even more stunning, it is our elected officials that are shaping the negative narrative, including future presidential candidates.
Radical Islamic terrorism.
I would not advocate that we put a Muslim in charge of this nation. I absolutely would not.
I will build a wall. It'll be a great wall. People will not come in. They are leaving. They're going.
It's hurtful. It really hurts. It makes me feel like I don't belong. To not feel welcome in the country that you grew up in, while I've started to get used to it just because I've dealt with it all my life, it still hurts to know that even in 2016 it's still happening.
I think if we combine, unite, if we show something for them.
Local leaders from Illinois understand politicians are not being held accountable for their actions. Therefore, action had to be taken.
Our political action committee might be able to stir up some help on that.
Led by retired Judge William Haddad, the American Middle East Voters Alliance Political Action Committee was formed, or better known as AMVOTE PAC.
Our people are underrepresented. We undervote. We don't know who we're voting for, and we don't know who to support. We need to move forward. So we're not going to ask anymore. We're not going to beg anymore. We're going to demand a seat at the table, or we'll vote accordingly.
Local college students from University of Illinois in Chicago are excited to see AMVOTE's mission come to life.
Having a group like AMVOTE will show politicians that it's really important to listen to us and that they shouldn't base their campaign on negative things against Muslims and Arabs.
In my opinion, I see a lot of Arabs unfamiliar with the process of the politics, and they need a group like AMVOTE to educate those people and make them vote for the right person.
Having a group like AMVOTE will really definitely show these candidates that we are here and we are present. With AMVOTE, you know, we can rally behind a political candidate that supports our interests and our needs.
Finally, a political action committee is formed to support or not support Illinois candidates.
We want jobs, we want contracts, we want education, we want scholarships, we want our kids to advance in the future, because if we don't change things here, we have no chance of changing things anywhere. AMVOTE is the answer.
The future is now with AMVOTE, the American Middle East Voters Alliance Political Action Committee.
So I want to share just a little bit of history about AMVOTE and its astonishing success, due in great part to its founder, our very own Honorable William Haddad. AMVOTE, yes. AMVOTE is the first Arab American political action committee in the history of Illinois. Since our certification in October of 2015, we have become a political force in Cook County by scoring some major successes. AMVOTE has doubled voter turnout in Cook County by targeting the 70,000 plus registered voters with social media blitzes, using website postings, Twitter, Facebook, email blasts, robocalls, radio spots, posters, flyers, friend-to-friend emails, and direct mailers. AMVOTE now owns its own registered voter database in Cook County and will be expanding to the collar counties. Today, AMVOTE has increased its database of Arab and Muslim American Cook County voters from 71,000 to 167,000, with email addresses to over 57,000 households. AMVOTE, I'm proud to say, has also combated hate head-on. We've successfully lobbied Chicago aldermen to adopt resolutions condemning ethnic hate speech, travel bans, registration and internment of persons based on ethnicity or religion. AMVOTE has held press conferences leading 23 bar groups at the Chicago Bar Association protesting the president's travel ban. We have also made media appearances with AMVOTE representatives appearing on Chicago Tonight, Politics Tonight at WGN, and numerous cable and radio shows. We've also held legal forums on the menace of Islamophobia and organizing CLEs at Loyola and DePaul law schools. The American Bar Association took notice and redistributed this CLE throughout the United States. Because of AMVOTE's mission and because of your active participation, candidates have sought AMVOTE's endorsements for elections for governor, state comptroller, and state's attorney, as well as clerk of court, judicial races, and the aldermanic races. We are proud of AMVOTE and we are proud of our community. Without further delay, I now welcome one of AMVOTE's executive committee board members, Rush Darwish, to get the evening started.
How's everybody doing tonight? My name is Rush Darwish, and it's good to see you all. We're very blessed to be here. I want to add a little bit more to what Marvette says. This was a process. AMVOTE PAC is a group that takes a look at all candidates. I want you to know it doesn't matter if you're a Republican, Democrat, or Independent. I want to share with you something. I want to tell you a little bit about the behind the scenes of AMVOTE, especially when it came to endorsing J.B. Pritzker. Now, the group had a couple of easier options. We had some other candidates that ran. You know most of them, or both of them. Bottom line is this: we had candidates who were already involved in the Muslim community. They were at all the events. And the easy thing to do was to immediately select one of those candidates. Especially, which of course we want in a perfect world to have everybody come together and endorse as one. But for us, what we want to do is be patient. You know, we didn't want to take the easy way. We wanted to do our job and do our research and do our due diligence. We met with 3 candidates, and as I mentioned, there was the option to go the easy route. And I'm going to share something with you. There was a situation where some people were not happy Just because, again, it's very easy to go the safe way. But at the end of the day, we looked at all the candidates. They all met with us in an office in downtown, in Judge Bill Haddad's office. We got to speak with them. We all got to ask questions. The AMVOTE Executive Board. And when it was all said and done, we realized that as a group, it was our responsibility to make the right choice. That wasn't just best for the Muslim community, the Arab community, but what was best for the state of Illinois. And that's how we came to this conclusion. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to welcome the Democratic candidate for governor and AMVOTE PAC's endorsed candidate, J.B. Pritzker.
And proud to be here as your endorsed candidate for governor. I want to thank Judge Haddad, who's been so kind from the very beginning. I must say that in our first meeting, Rush, you and Judge Haddad and the others who were in the room, you put me to the test. There's no doubt about it. But that's what you're supposed to do. And indeed, I must say it made me a better candidate. It also, you informed me about some issues that were extraordinarily important to your community, and I carry that with me as a candidate today. I'm thrilled to be here as the candidate for governor, and I want to tell you, to begin with, why I decided to run for governor in the first place. Maybe, like some of you, I woke up on the morning after the November election in 2016. My wife and I had been in New York, actually, at the headquarters, what hoped to be a victory celebration for the Democratic candidate for Hillary Clinton. And when we went to bed, of course, we didn't go to bed till, 2 in the morning. We knew what the outcome was. But we woke up in the morning sad, a little bit bewildered. I'd like to say we were both in the fetal position, wondering, what do we do now? We looked at each other, my wife and I, and said, we heard people that night at 2 in the morning, as the results were known, say, I don't want to be involved in politics anymore. Look at what's happened. We had the opposite reaction. We said, now we've got to fight harder. Now we've got to fight the hardest we've ever fought. And came out of it believing that it's going to take a lot of people to stand up and do the right thing, say the right thing, to change the politics of the country now that Donald Trump had been elected. We didn't know how bad it was really going to be. We knew it was going to be bad. But I think we've seen now, 20 months into his administration, it's frankly frightening for many people. And I believe frightening for the future of the country. So I decided to run for governor because everything we care about is under siege right now. Everything. By a racist, misogynist, xenophobic president in Washington, D.C., but also by a governor who is his silent partner. Now remember, there's no room to be silent in a country where Donald Trump has been elected president. You have to stand up and be heard. When the President of the United States doesn't know the difference between the civil rights marchers in Charlottesville and the white supremacists marching in Charlottesville, when the President says there are good people on both sides of that, you know that you've got to stand up and you've got to fight and you've got to say something and be heard. I want to remind you that the governor of the state of Illinois took 6 days being harangued by reporters to say that what Donald Trump had done was wrong. I don't know about you, but when I heard it on television The day that I heard it, I was throwing things at the television, I was yelling, I wanted to stand up and be heard at that moment. And I did speak out at that moment. But it took the governor 6 days. Now, if that isn't bad enough, this is a governor who, when Syrian refugees were going to be traveling and moving to different states in the United States, had been allowed to come into the country. The Pennsylvania governor, Tom Wolf, he went to the airport and welcomed the Syrian refugees and said, thank you for coming to Pennsylvania. Welcome, and we want you here, and you will be part of the lifeblood of our state. The governor of our state, on the other hand, announced he didn't want any Syrian refugees in Illinois. Now, I take particular offense to that. My own history is a history of a refugee, a 10-year-old boy named Nicholas Pritzker, who arrived in this country penniless. He escaped being killed in Europe and arrived here with nothing and was allowed to enter the United States and came to Chicago and didn't have a place to live, didn't have any money, initially lived in the basement of the Chicago train station, and then it was a social service agency that gave him a place to live. And then it was a public school that gave him an education and allowed him to learn English. And it was a public university that gave him an opportunity to get a higher education. And he's alive. In fact, I'm alive because of the generosity of the people of the state of Illinois, because of the security and safety that the United States offered to this child who was a minority, who was part of a religious minority, a Jew. And back then, that was a very small minority in the United States. It still is. But the fact that I'm alive, that I'm here, that I'm even able to come to an event like this, let alone to stand in front of you as a Democratic nominee for governor, is because the United States and the people of Illinois, the state of Illinois, stood up for my family. I want you to know that I believe, is an expression of the values of the people of Illinois and the values that I believe the United States ought to stand for. But they're also the values that I will make sure that the state of Illinois expresses as a welcoming state, as a state that stands up for its new immigrants and for immigrant families that have been here for a generation or 2 generations or 3 generations, who still are looked upon sometimes as a new minority, even if you've been here for an awfully long time. And the opportunity to stand up for the Muslim American community, for the Middle Eastern community in the state of Illinois will be my honor. That it is my obligation. I know how important immigrant families have been to this country and still are. And today, immigrant families are an important part of the economy of the state of Illinois. For those who think, oh my goodness, we need to, like Donald Trump, thinks that we need to get rid of immigrants because they're causing economic harm, it's exactly the opposite. He doesn't understand. He doesn't understand. Aside from him being a racist, I think he's not all that bright. Now we have real work to do to make sure that this state lives up to its obligations and its history. You know, much of the writing of a former president from this state, I speak first of President Abraham Lincoln, and then of course of Barack Obama, that the history of this state is in some ways expressed by the fact of those 2 products of Illinois becoming president of the United States. And so we have much to live up to, and I think we're good people, all of us in the state of Illinois, trying to do the right thing, but you've got to have the right leadership, in my opinion. You've got to have a leadership that's willing to speak truth to the power in Washington, D.C. that's trying to take away rights from people in the state of Illinois. Yes, we're all one country, we're all one nation, but when Washington, D.C. is attempting, and the White House is attempting to oppress people of color, immigrants, it is critically important that we have somebody in the state, a leader who's willing every day to wake up and pledge themselves to protect every community in the state of Illinois. Now, we have the opportunity in 2018 to do something very important. You know, I am so proud to have the endorsement of President Obama, and when I went to meet with him a few weeks ago, we talked about the 2018 elections, and he said about this election, first, that it's the most important election in our lifetime. And the reason he said that was, he said, the future of the free world is on the line in 2018. And I really believe that's right. That if our country does not re-express its values, if we do not elect more good people to the House of Representatives in Washington, D.C. to stand up to this president, if we do not elect governors who are willing to stand up and protect the people of their states, and attorneys general, let me remind you that many of the protections for immigrant families over the last 20 months, when you've heard of all the court cases to protect immigrants from Donald Trump's xenophobic, racist, policies. Those protections have been put in place because attorneys general were willing to take cases to court to fight for immigrants in the United States. We need to make sure that we elect an attorney general this time, and I think that's Kwame Raoul, who will stand up for you. The last thing I want to say to you is that the election is 69 days away, not that I'm counting, but it's 69 days away, and I know that many of you are working hard to make sure that your community members are registered to vote and that they know about the election, they know how important it is. I want to ask you to double up on that effort. It really is the most important election of our lifetimes, and not just because I'm around, but honestly, because we have to re-express ourselves. We have to, all of us together. We, in this room, we are American. We are the patriots. And what we do in November 6th, what we do, early voting starts September 27th, in case you wanted to know, but what we do on November 6th on Election Day, the outcome will be the determinant, in my view, of whether or not we'll be able to defeat Donald Trump in 2020, whether we'll be able to reverse the policies that he's trying to put in place over the last 2 years, or whether we will sink further into the morass and the abyss. So I want you to be uplifted by the idea that we have a real opportunity coming up. And I ask you all to, wherever you may go, whether it's a mosque, whether it's to the grocery store or to a neighborhood gathering, that you raise this issue with people and tell them, do not forget to vote. November 6th, please, everyone get out to vote, because it's going to be a real fight. It really is. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, JB. Just want to let everybody know, for people who are watching at home, we are on Facebook Live as well. And God willing, by Monday, we'll have this entire event broadcast with the 2 cameras set up for people who want to watch the entire show. Well, JB, once again, thank you. We welcome you, and AMVOTE welcomes you. We do have some students that will be coming up and asking some questions shortly. I'll open up by asking this question. We have to be real here. The state of Illinois, many people will say, is a big hot mess. And you know that and you see that when people are leaving the state. Yeah. I mean, that's to me the ultimate sign that things are going wrong. if elected governor, what do you plan on doing on making sure not only do people stay in the state of Illinois, but the people who left, maybe they'll be interested in coming back?
Yeah, I love to hear you say it that way, because I'm not just interested in stanching the outflow of people in the state of Illinois. This is a great state. We should be attracting people to move to this state. So let's start to talk about how we're going to address the most important issues that I think have driven some people to leave Illinois. Let's start with this. 72,000 students chose to leave the state over the last 3.5 years under Bruce Rauner because they either left the state or they decided not to go to school, to university or college in the state of Illinois, because their MAP grants were at risk or didn't get funded, the state scholarship programs. Because the faculty at universities and community colleges were laid off, the programs were at risk. The same very programs that adults and young adults wanted to attend were at risk. And so if you think about the uncertainty that students were facing, and add to that that other states, universities, chose, seeing the uncertainty and the opportunity. Other states, in fact 65 universities, came and set up shop in Illinois to take our students to their universities because they have a better deal to offer at those universities than our in-state university community colleges had to offer. Think about that. We're getting picked off, and so are our faculty. So we've got to reverse that. That's maybe the most important thing we can do, is reverse that outflow of people. By the way, when our young people get up and leave to go to college and university, 70% of them don't come back. They get a job wherever it is they went to college, or they get recruited by another company in some other part of the country. So first of all, those are our best economic prospects for the future. They're also our children. We want them to stay. And so we need to make sure our universities and community colleges are world class. And that we focus on making sure that college is affordable, and that we reduce the amount of college debt that people are facing if they want to go to college. And I believe that we can put thousands of dollars back on the table for an average student and family that's taking out loans to go to college, simply by allowing people to refinance the debt that they take on. We can do that. We can do that in the state of Illinois, allow people to reduce the amount of the interest rate that they're paying on the debt that they take on, and we can add to that, as I say, more scholarship money and make sure that we're keeping our kids in the state. That's one. I'm sorry, I just want to go to the other one, property taxes. Folks, Bruce Rauner talks a good game about property taxes, but I want to remind you that he proposed a budget this year. This is after 3 years of vetoing budgets. He finally proposed a balanced budget, and the way he balanced the budget in the state of Illinois was pushing $1 billion of expenditures down to the local level. So you know what that does? It raises your property taxes by $1 billion. That's what he proposed doing. I have proposed a plan that will allow us to lower property taxes and pay for schools better, because that's our biggest problem in the state. That is, our schools are not funded properly. About a quarter of funding for schools comes from the state, 3/4 or most of the rest of it comes from local property taxes in the state. But in most other states, in the average state in the United States, it's about half and half. So we put a lot of burden on local property taxes. Lots of people who look at the possibility of paying a property tax bill in the state, in the size home that they've got, and a property tax bill in a neighboring state right over the border, say, gee, I might choose the neighboring state. Let's stop that outflow. So I think if we took care of those two problems, we would not only stanch the outflow of people in the state, and hopefully people wanting to come back. Last part is, if you want to attract people in the state, got to create jobs. Under Bruce Rauner, bottom third of job growth in the nation, Illinois. I know how to create jobs. I've been doing it for an awful long time. I founded 1871, which is the small business incubator that's created 7,000 jobs in hundreds of companies. It's the #1 business incubator. We can do that all over the state. We need to help small businesses grow.
Thank you very much, JB. Just on a side note, I coach my kids' basketball team, and two of my best players, they moved out of state. So there goes my season. You said we're going to bring them back here to Illinois and back on our team for next year. All right, we are very proud, AMVOTE PAC, to not only welcome the community, but we wanted to make this about the youngsters. We wanted to make it about students, the future. The people today will make a difference tomorrow. And this is why the people who are going to be asking questions tonight are students. Some from right here in Moraine Valley Community College, and we have a couple students from UIC based in Chicago. Let's start with our first person asking questions. Not only is she with Moraine Valley Community College, but also a key member with the Arab Student Union. Let's welcome Ban El-Baidi.
Hello. My question for you tonight is, what programs would you implement to ensure that students from low-income communities are able to afford college, be successful in college, and complete their degrees?
What was the last part?
Complete their degrees.
Complete their degrees, yeah. Thank you. I'm so glad you asked that question, and you know, it sort of feeds right from my last answer about making sure that we're funding MAP grants. The question, for those of you who didn't hear, was how do we keep our students, particularly helping minority students or students of color, stay in school and graduate, right? And make it easier for them. Is that about the substance of it? So the first thing is, as I just said, we have got to make college more affordable. Now, we also need to recognize that not everybody is going to go to college. Lots of people will choose not to go to college, and we should make it easier for people to get a good job without going to college. So if you don't want to strap yourself with debt or take on the responsibility of going to college, what about bringing back, I say what about, I'm in favor of bringing back vocational training and career and technical education into our high schools and making sure that kids can get an apprenticeship program. And our community colleges are critically important for that too, for continuing education, to upgrade skills, to give people opportunity for new kinds of jobs and upgrading their income levels. But here's the most important thing. If we can provide for kids in high school the ability to get a good job that pays a good wage, a skilled work wage, we can genuinely change the face of the state. Now, for kids who go to college, I keep saying kids, I'm sorry, I'm getting old, that's why I use that term. Our young adults, we need to not only make it more affordable, but also to provide for many kids, it's sometimes difficult as they enter college to stay in college. Either for cultural reasons, cultural pressures, challenges of changing, living in one community and then moving into a college or university that's in a different community or with a different population. And so the bridging programs, the programs that really coach the kids who need it most, we need to actually make sure we fund those programs that got defunded, by the way, under Bruce Rauner. Finally, we need to stop this business of, Bruce Rauner proposed a 30% cut in university funding in the state of Illinois, 30% cut. Now, he's been pushed back upon, but he's made cuts in university because of the budget impasse for 2 years. Big cuts got made, lots of people got laid off. We've got to restore all that for the state of Illinois. We are nothing in the state if we do not keep our students in our schools, going to school here, and make sure that we've got world-class faculty teaching those students.
Thank you very much. Ron, thank you very much. Just a heads up, whoever's asking a question, kindly try your best to speak into the mic for best audio quality. Let's move on, and let's welcome Ra Hussein from UIC.
Hi, Mr. Pritzker. So this question means a lot to me because I am a victim of hate speech and racially motivated harassment. Sorry. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. What policy changes or preventative measures are you actively working on to keep minorities safe from hate speech and violence? And what have you specifically done to advance those policy changes and preventative measures?
Yep. Well, once again, I think you need a governor who's actually speaking the fact of our civil rights laws in the state of Illinois. I mean, standing up and speaking out when people are either in Washington, D.C., as we talked about earlier, or in the state of Illinois infringing on people's rights. Now, I was the chairman of the Illinois Human Rights Commission. And in fact, when I took it over, it was in terrible shape. I don't know if you know what the Human Rights Commission does, but for those who don't, I'll just briefly explain. When you get discriminated against in the state, in your employment, when you want to rent an apartment, in public accommodations in any way, you have two choices. You could go hire an attorney to sue, or for many people who can't afford to hire an attorney, you could go to the Human Rights Department, file a case, and then when your case is heard, if you decide to appeal that case, it goes to the Human Rights Commission, which I was the chairman of. This commission is a bipartisan commission, and essentially we were the appellate court for people who needed to have their cases heard because they didn't think they got justice. Half Republicans, half Democrats. Whoever the governor is chooses a chairman that's of their party. So I was the chairman, and the job is to make sure that people got justice. When I got there, this commission, just before I got there, the Chicago Tribune had written, this commission was so poorly run that they may as well just put it out of business. Just close it down. So here I took over what may have been the worst run commission in state government. I'm not sure that's a job that everybody wants to take on, but I wanted to, because I wanted to fix it, and I did. We did. Together, the Republicans and Democrats, we all worked together to fix that commission, to make sure that people were getting justice. It was taking people, when I got there, as much as 45 months to get justice. Imagine you got fired because you're Muslim American, and then you wanted to get your case heard. Imagine having to wait 45 months to get justice. You'd be destitute. So it was my job to make sure that we made that time period as short as humanly possible. And we did do that. We did a good job, all of us together, Republicans and Democrats. I'm proud to say many of those Republicans are supporting me in my run for governor, partly because they've seen me work as a leader. But I want you to know that when you ask this question about how, who's going to stand up or how are you going to stand up, I have a history of doing it, and I will continue to do it. It is my firm belief, to my core, that it is the job of government to stand up for people who are being put upon, particularly the civil rights and human rights.
Thank you very much, Ron. Thank you for all your help with this event as well. Ron helped register people to vote as well prior to the event, or hopefully after the event as well. We definitely put her to work for tonight. Let's move on. We have another student. I have the first name, did not get the last name, but it is an honorable name. Let's welcome Muhammad, also from UIC. Speak into the mic if you don't mind. You can take it out if you want. It's cool like that. There you go. There we go. Now we're talking.
Good evening, Kennedy Pritzker. I essentially had a question prepared, but you addressed it during the beginning remarks when it was initially about property tax and how many people were leaving the state due to property tax. But while I was sitting, I thought of a question that pertains to me specifically, as well as many of my colleagues at UIC. And it was essentially about how food, the phenomenon of food deserts within Black and Brown communities in the inner city, as well as the destabilization of CPS schools that has been done under Governor Bruce Rauner. And I was wondering what can be done to address these local phenomena, and what can be done to make people more hopeful of CPS and access to healthy and good foods.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a great question, and I have to say, of all of the students, really, these are terrific questions, and you're all obviously extraordinarily bright. And by the way, thank you for staying in the state of Illinois, getting educated here. Now we want to make sure you get jobs, right?
That was part of the deal for the next question.
There you go.
Homegrown.
Exactly. So I'll start by just maybe throwing a little bit of my bona fides on the table. I worked several years ago with the Greater Chicago Food Depository and with Share Our Strength to expand a program that President Obama made possible for school breakfasts for low-income children all across the state of Illinois. 230,000 kids now can get school breakfast because of the work that we did. And those are kids who otherwise weren't getting breakfast. And just to be clear, this isn't like handing out breakfast to people who could have eaten it at home. These are kids who may have, as their only meal before we did this, they've only had school lunch. That may have been their only meal in the day. So adding school breakfast is critically important, and I thought it was important enough to work on expanding that across the state. Having said that, we've got a real challenge with food deserts, particularly in the city of Chicago, but it's true in elsewhere as well. I would say a couple things. Bruce Reiner just vetoed a bill that would allow people to develop more urban agriculture, which would help with the food desert problem, allowing people to grow their own vegetables and fruit in local communities. He doesn't understand, in my view, that we've got to attack this problem, approach this problem from a lot of different angles. That's just one. That's not going to solve the problem, but it's a beginning. I've seen, it's not just true in the city of Chicago, I want to point out too. I was just in Peoria a month or so ago. The Kroger, the only grocery store that was covering much of the African American community in Peoria, closed. And literally there's just nothing that people could access. They had to actually create a bus route that just came right from the middle of the community, basically where the Kroger had been, so people could go to where the Kroger had been, get on a bus, and go to the relatively far away grocery store to buy things and then come back. And of course, those are inconvenient. You can't run enough routes. It's not good enough. So we've got to provide incentives, in my view, for opening grocery stores, making sure that there's more available in the community, and of course, building up, I hate to say, food pantries. You know, many of the food pantries have even in communities that have a grocery store, many people can't afford enough to pay for their family. I mean, there's food insecurity all around us, not just in food deserts. And so we've got to make sure that the state of Illinois is doing everything that it can to lift people out of poverty. That means standing up to make sure those food pantries are in good shape. And then, you know, we've got to create jobs, and I believe we need to make sure we lift wages in the state of Illinois. That's one of the reasons that I believe that labor unions are important for us to stand up for. And for those of you who don't belong to a labor union, I just want to say, labor unions really do fight for working people all across the state of Illinois, even people who don't belong to labor unions. I mean, they are fighting for a good wage, they're fighting for a safe workplace. It's one of the reasons that I stand with them. But we've got to lift people out of poverty, and it's critically important, and maybe the most important thing that we can do in the state. Poverty is rising. Poverty is rising. I think 50% of our youngest children in the state of Illinois grow up in poverty now. 50%. Right? These are the newest, youngest kids. That's wrong, and we've got to work on making sure that that these kids get every opportunity in life.
Thank you very much. Let's move along. Also from the Arab Student Union and a student at Rain Valley Community College, let's welcome Nay Sen.
Hello, I hope everyone can hear me.
Yes.
So pretty much going off of the jobs topic, what role will Muslims and Arabs have if you are elected next governor of Illinois in your administration, including higher level state jobs?
Yeah. Excuse me. Thank you for asking the question. And let me start by saying that I believe that in order for communities to be addressed, to genuinely have their challenges and problems resolved by government, you've got to have people who represent those communities in the highest levels of government. And that means both, it means both religious minorities, cultural minorities, every kind of, but it also means geographically. Because the challenges that exist in certain communities are unique to those communities. And I don't mean, again, by race or by ethnicity. It's literally by geography sometimes. And so that I also think is very important for us to do. So my pledge to you is that, that we will have representation at the highest levels of our government from the Middle Eastern community, from the Arab American community, the Muslim American community. Critically important, some of you know that my press secretary today is Jordanian American, and some of my staff.
Jordan's here tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry to catch you off guard, Jordan, but it was laid out for me. So.
I'm not saying I'm offering her a job right now in an administration because we haven't won this election yet, but suffice to say that I really do think that in order for the voices of the community to be heard, they've got to be not just in mid-level management or not just in line worker kind of positions in state government, but literally in the governor's office.
So I want to add to that, this is really tough to throw this, but can we throw a promise, if elected governor, that there will be a focus on looking at Muslims, Arab Americans to work in your administration and in the state of Illinois to state jobs?
Yes. You asked a question about jobs, or at least the implication was around jobs. I just want to address one more thing. You know, so much of the Middle Eastern community is entrepreneurial. Yes. And you know, I'm an enormous believer in creating jobs by helping people start businesses and grow businesses. In fact, 2/3 of all the jobs in the state are created by new small businesses and small businesses that grow into medium-sized businesses. And it's very hard in state government to address small businesses. That's why many people don't. Many of your elected officials don't address the problem that small businesses face. It's hard because there are lots of small businesses. And so when you're addressing them, you're addressing lots of different kinds of challenges. And so you end up with elected officials who just focus on big businesses and trying to attract big companies. Listen, I'm for bringing big companies to the state of Illinois, for sure. And you need a governor who's not going to badmouth the state every day, by the way, to bring big businesses to the state of Illinois. Our governor badmouths the state every day. And I think you need somebody who understands what's great about the state, which is our people and how educated and dedicated our people are. But our small businesses are critically important in helping people who are entrepreneurial and creative access the things that they need to start and grow those businesses. That's how we're going to create jobs in the state of Illinois. And you know the number one thing when you've got someone who's creative and entrepreneurial and has a good idea, the number one problem that they face, that's the killer, is no capital. Small businesses can't access, and as entrepreneurs, new entrepreneurs, you can't go to a bank and borrow money to start your business. That doesn't work. Small businesses, you know, banks have almost stopped lending to small businesses. So I think we need a state small business loan fund. I think we need a technical assistance and mentorship for people to start and grow businesses in their communities. Because, you know, if you start a business in your community, you're going to hire people in your community. And when you make a profit, you're going to spend that money in the community, or you're going to invest in growing the business either in that community or in the next community over. And so if we want to create jobs in the state, I think it needs to be that 1,000 flowers bloom across the state of Illinois, or 10,000 flowers. And that'll be my job as governor. It's something that I believe you know because I created 1871 and because I've been involved in helping people start and grow businesses. That's something I really believe in and know that state government can be a partner in helping you do that. So I just wanted to address that because you asked about jobs.
So before we move on, we're going to do our own little AMVOTE PAC poll. That's how we do it here at AMVOTE PAC. How many people here either own a small business or have a really close family member that owns a small business here in Chicago or in the state of Illinois? It's unbelievable.
I'm not at all surprised, but I'm so glad to see that.
So JB, we have people here today, esteemed members of our community. Tonight, they're going to move on, and they're going to tell family and friends about JB Pritzker. What do they need to know? If somebody right here tonight is undecided, what do they need to know for them to vote for JB Pritzker come November?
I guess there are several things that I'd like to point out to all of you. Number one, we need real change in the state of Illinois. I think you need a governor who's going to go to Springfield with a set of principles and work hard to accomplish those principles, but not stop the creation of a budget. A budget is a moral document. It's the expression of who we are as a state. Bruce Rauner's expression of that is nothing. No budget for 2 years, a third year of a veto. We need real change. We need somebody who's actually going to go fight and stand on principle, and I don't care if you don't like the guys on the other side of the table from you as you're negotiating a budget. It is your job as governor to get the job done, and I have done that. I have proven during the course of my life the willingness to work with people to get big things done. Whether it was creating 1871 and thousands of jobs and helping people start those small businesses, whether it was helping to found a museum. In fact, I led the building of a museum that teaches more than 60,000 kids across the state of Illinois to fight bigotry and hatred and intolerance every single year. And I also was chairman of the Human Rights Commission. I told you about that, and turned it around, working with Republicans and Democrats to get that job done. I also was a principal sponsor of the Center on Wrongful Convictions, which, by the way, had fought against the death penalty in the state of Illinois, which we now have abolished from the state. Bruce Rauner has now tried to reintroduce the death penalty. And also fights to help our juveniles get out of trouble and stay out of trouble after they've gotten in trouble once, because we need to make sure they don't become recidivists and end up in a life of crime when they made a mistake when they were 13 or 14 or 15 years old. And so these are all things that I have worked on and have been engaged in for my life, and I could tell you other stories, but my point in raising it is I think you want someone with real experience getting big things done, because we have an awful lot of things to tackle in the state of Illinois. We need to address the problem of our pensions in the state, to make sure that we pay the pensions that are owed, make sure that we're not further deepening our fiscal crisis in the state, make sure we change the property tax system and fund our schools better. These are all things that I have put out plans for, things that I really believe we can overcome. We've got to stop staring into the abyss and start talking about and working on the future of the state of Illinois, the kind of future that we all want and need and know that we can build. And we've got to do it together. And I'd add one last thing. I think we want somebody who's going to stand up against Donald Trump and what he's tried to do to the people of the state of Illinois and all across this country, and return it to the good people, many of you in this room, all of you in this room, fighting for what's right in the country, fighting for what's right in the state of Illinois.
Thank you very much, David. Before we wrap, I do want to say this. It means a lot to us that you came out and spoke to us. Our community has evolved in many ways. We are engaged, and I'll be honest with you, I think a lot of people in this room will agree that even though politics and political figures have come in and out of town and came to various meetings in the Arab and Muslim community, the reality is this: Donald Trump was the wake-up call for many of us, and it's not only led us to be engaged in national politics, but also now more than ever, we care about state politics and what's happening right here in our own neighborhood, Chicago, Illinois. And thank you very much, J.B. Pritzker, for being here tonight. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, I do want to welcome somebody. Without this person, AMVOTE PAC would not exist. The reality is this: we've been needing a PAC, a political action committee, that stands up for what we believe in, what we want to see, what's happening in our community. We needed a PAC. But it took somebody to actually make it happen. And it's a pleasure. I'll never forget, about 5 years ago, we were at another event, and Judge Bill Haddad told me, hey, I'm looking to get this PAC going. And I said, the minute you do that, I'm in. Just let me know. And here we are, roughly 6 years later. AMVOTE PAC is here, it's alive, it's well, it's better than ever, and it's because of this person, the Honorable Retired Judge Bill Haddad.
Oh, sit down, sit down. think I'll just sit down now. Thank you. You don't stand for me, you stand for your children and your grandchildren. That's what we're looking at. We're looking at pretty challenging times right now. First of all, I want to thank you, Rush, for doing such a wonderful job tonight. Thank you very much. He's our chairman as well. And Aziza Darwish, your wife, who's been back there taking pictures. Thank you, Aziza. And I would like our board of advisors and executive board for AMVOTE to please stand up and get a round of applause for all your support and help over the years. Come on, all of you. Thank you very much. And thank you, Mr. I was going to call you Mr. Governor. I think I can do that. JB, thanks for joining us today. And thanks to your staff. I see Jordan over there, our Jordanian American from downstate, and where's Zareen? Where are you, sweetheart? I shouldn't say that, but Zareen Khan is back there. And she's standing next to Claire Lindbergh, who's been helping us along. Thank you, and all the other advanced people for the campaign. By the way, please sign up for our newsletter in the back. I was told to say that. Before I tell you why we selected and endorsed J.B. Pritzker, I've got to give you the bad news first. Okay? Because you have to know, and we all know, the backdrop for the last 2 years. You know, after 9/11, we had a news conference at the Chicago Bar Association. Rohi Shalaby stood next to me, and we addressed the backlash against Arab and Muslims in the United States. That wasn't anything compared to what we've seen in the last 2 years. Candidates are falling over themselves these days to disparage our community with an agenda that started back in the election campaign, presidential election campaign of 2015-16. People were talking about surveilling our people, surveilling our neighborhoods. People were talking about profiling our people. People were talking about registering our people, registering Muslim Americans. And there was even talk about internment. How do we know that? Because the Japanese Americans stood up and started to say, whoa, don't talk about internment. We were invited to their meetings. They gave us some advice about that. Zogby polls back then told us that there was a groundswell of anti-Muslim bigotry that was animated by the Trump candidacy. So let me talk about hate speech and what happens during hate speech and what happens as a consequence of hate speech from these candidates during the time they ran for president. We saw attacks on places of worship, mosques, even churches, and the Syrian church, residences, community centers, businesses, weapons of choice, knives, guns, baseball bats, firebombs, rocks, eggs, Molotov cocktails, machetes, feces, animal parts. Many of the attacks targeted our women and our daughters who were wearing hijabs, or Sikhs wearing turbans, or whole families, or Indian Americans, Bangladesh Americans, Pakistani Americans, because they thought they were Arabs or Muslims or whatever. All of these were deemed hate crimes. Let me tell you about a few more. I should also mention, we all recall the murder of those 3 Middle Eastern dental students in Raleigh, North Carolina. They were murdered. And then there was this restaurant owner in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Lebanese like me, Catholic like me, who was murdered. And as the killer stood over his body, he called him a dirty Arab and a filthy Lebanese. Hate crimes. Hate crimes at the time of this campaign. It's just a relationship we all have to remember and acknowledge, and we know that J.B. Pritzker is aware of these facts. In the last 15 months, in New York, an imam and his assistant were shot. A Bangladeshi woman was stabbed. Garden City, Kansas, there was a plan to detonate 4 truckloads of explosives in Muslim neighborhoods that was thwarted. Simi Valley, California, a Muslim worshiper was stabbed outside of a mosque. Kansas, man shouted, "Get out of my country," to an Indian American who was mistaken as an Arab. He was shot and killed. Kent, Washington, man shot a Sikh shouting, "Get out of my country." Salem, Oregon, Arab man beaten with a pipe. The man yelled, "Get back to your country, get out of America." There's an immigration policy for you folks. Where did he get that idea? Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Muslim woman beaten and stabbed by a man because she wore a headscarf. Portland, Oregon, man yelled anti-Muslim slurs at two young Muslim women on the mass transit. When men tried to interfere, they were stabbed. 3 men were stabbed. And then there was New York City recently. A man kicked an airline worker, a Muslim airline worker. Here's what he said. "Trump is here now. He will get rid of you all." That's an immigration policy of some sort, I suppose. That is a consequence of this kind of hate speech. We've seen Zogby and the Arab American Institute issue polling. The most interesting was, at the time, the change of favorable attitudes towards Arab Americans and Muslims. The Zogby polling showed that favorable attitudes toward Arab Americans had dropped from 49% to 40% during those 2 years during that campaign. And favorable attitudes toward Muslim Americans plummeted from 48% to 33%. So I tell you this because this is the atmosphere, this is the milieu, this is the backdrop to when AMVOTE was organized and when AMVOTE met the candidates who were running for governor last March and had the opportunity to meet with J.B. Pritzker. And we identified many reasons for supporting him. And you should know some of them. So I'll give you 6 of them. Not all of them, just 6. And a couple you heard tonight. First reason. J.B. fought to stop hate speech from the get-go. He spoke out against it right away. Any hate speech against Arab and Muslim Americans was decried by J.B. Pritzker. He supported the AMVOTE resolution in the City Council of Chicago to condemn it. That resolution passed unanimously. Second reason, J.B. condemned the Muslim travel ban. He didn't just say he was against it. He was down at O'Hare Airport on January the 17th, 2017, with fellow attorneys giving advice out to people who were coming in and having a problem getting in the country and formally protesting this Muslim ban. Rauner? What did he do? Well, the Tribune tells us he avoided taking a stand regarding Trump's travel ban, and then ended up supporting a ban of bringing Syrian immigrants here because he called them, quote, terrorists. Third reason why we support J.B. Pritzker. Profiling and registration of Arab and Muslim Americans. When our executive board last December asked him about registering Muslim Americans, here's what he said, quote, "If such a regulation to register Muslims ever came to be, I will be the first person to sign up as a Muslim." Fourth reason, J.B. is working to restore the Hate Crime Commission of the state of Illinois. In 2007, it was made law. But when Rauner came in, he refused to fill the 20 vacancies and activate that Hate Crime Commission. So AMVOTE supported a resolution before the Chicago City Council to restore the Hate Crime Commission. We sent that resolution to the governor's mansion. J.B. supported that resolution. It passed unanimously. Fifth reason why we endorsed J.B. Pritzker, you heard part of it already. J.B., in order to help our image and help representation in government, has pledged to bring well-qualified Arab and Muslim Americans to serve in his administration. We know his press secretary is an Arab American. When he was chairman of the Human Rights Commission, his chief deputy, Matt Hamoudi, is an Arab American lawyer in our Bar Association. I see some of our Arab Bar members here today. And then we see also Zareen and many other people. I mean, he's just not talking the talk, he's walking the walk. He's already started to do that, he's done it in the past. Fifth reason, I should say 6, I can't count too well. In order to enhance our image and help in commerce with our community and our small businesses and big businesses, J.B. Pritzker said he would lead trade missions to the Middle East. going to lead trade missions there. You know, he didn't talk enough about himself tonight, so permit me to do it. He also said that he would establish the first international trade office for Illinois in that region, in the Middle East. So he's a man of action, and these are some of the reasons why we support him. So look, folks, we all know we believe in this great country. We believe in America. I believe in America, and you do too. It ain't perfect, but it's what we have, and it's not a bad country, is it? We believe in our American dream. We believe in our system of government. We believe in our institutions, and we believe in the Constitution of the United States of America when it says that government has a duty to use checks and balances. So when Congress will not put a check on this president, and we've seen that, so when the Supreme Court at times will not put a check on this president, and we've seen that, then we have to look at the states and the cities to protect our people from these governmental policies that discriminate against us. And that would be in the way of J.B. Pritzker. He will be our next governor, and I don't say that just because he's leading by double digits, because that's going to get real close. But he's also going to be governor because he's definitely the best person for the job. So in the coming months, the American Middle East Voters Alliance Political Action Committee, AMVOTE, will do its part. We will reach out to our 167,000 registered voters here in Cook County. We will canvass them. We'll send out media and phone calls and email blitzes and whatever the heck we do. We have our media director back there. We'll do our part. Now I ask you to do your part. JB needs your support, and we need JB's support. And inshallah, by the grace of God, we'll get you elected.